Some heroes don't wear capes, they wear quiet courage. When Keanu Reeves walked onto the Tonight Show stage with that serene presence and gentle smile that had made him Hollywood's most beloved soul, nobody expected him to reveal the most heartbreaking chapter of his personal mission. Jimmy Fallon had planned a thoughtful interview about Keanu's latest action film. The audience was ready for the philosophical insights and humble charm that always came with a Keanu Reeves appearance. But what Keanu was about to confess would silence Studio 6B and prove that sometimes the most powerful battles are fought not on movie screens, but in hospital rooms where children face enemies that no superhero can defeat. The cameras were rolling, the audience was already captivated by Keanu's magnetic humility, and then he spoke 11 words that changed everything. I visit kids, fighting the same battle my sister fought. What came next wasn't just television. It was a revelation about love, loss, and the sacred promise that grief can become a gift to others walking the same dark path. Keanu Reeves had always been known for his enigmatic privacy and unexpected depth. The action star who chose introspection over self-promotion, who found meaning in philosophy rather than fame. But what audiences didn't know was that Keanu's most profound work happened far from cameras, in the sterile hallways of children's cancer wards, where his own family's tragedy had become his calling to comfort others facing the unthinkable. The hospital visits had begun 8 years earlier, during a particularly difficult anniversary of his sister Kim's battle with leukemia. Kim had fought the disease for nearly a decade, and though she had ultimately survived, the experience had marked both of them permanently. Keanu had spent years watching his sister endure treatments, setbacks, and the fear that came with never knowing if the next scan would bring good news or devastating reality. Kim's cancer taught me that courage isn't what you see in movies, Keanu later explained. Real courage is a 12-year-old girl getting chemotherapy and still asking if her hair will grow back in time for school pictures, its parents sleeping in hospital chairs for months, believing in hope when hope seems impossible. 8 years after Kim entered remission, Keanu had been visiting a friend at Children's Hospital Los Angeles when he passed the oncology ward. The sight of children in hospital gowns, some bald from treatment, others connected to IV poles, had immediately transported him back to his sister's darkest days. But more than the memories, he had felt a profound responsibility to the families who were currently living the nightmare his family had survived. I realized that I had something most people in that situation don't have, Keanu said. I had perspective. I knew that survival was possible because I'd watched it happen. I knew that families could make it through because mine had. And I understood that sometimes hope comes from meeting someone who's been where you are and made it to the other side. That first visit had been informal. Keanu simply introducing himself to families in the waiting area, sharing Kim's story, and offering encouragement based on their experience, but the impact had been immediate and profound. Parents who had been drowning in fear found comfort in speaking with someone who understood their terror. Children who felt isolated by their illness connected with someone who had watched a loved one face the same battle. The kids especially responded to hearing about Kim, Keanu remembered. They wanted to know if she was scared during treatment, how she stayed brave, what helped her feel normal when everything felt scary. They needed to hear from someone who wasn't a doctor or a parent, someone who had witnessed survival and could promise them it was possible. From that initial encounter, Keanu had begun visiting children's cancer wards regularly, bringing not celebrity glamour, but genuine understanding and hope rooted in lived experience. His approach was characteristically humble and authentic. He would spend hours with families, listen to their fears, share Kim's journey, and, most importantly, provide tangible proof that cancer could be survived. I never go as Keanu Reeves, the movie star, he explained. I go as Kim's brother, as someone who sat in those same waiting rooms, who watched someone I love fight for their life and win. That's the identity that matters in those moments. Over 8 years, Keanu's hospital visits had reached 234 children and their families across multiple cities where he was filming or touring. Each visit was private, arranged through hospital child life specialists and social workers who identified families who might benefit from his particular perspective. I've met kids who were just diagnosed and terrified, teenagers angry about missing their senior year, parents who haven't slept in months because they're afraid their child might die, Keanu said. Each situation is different, but they all share this need to believe that survival is possible, that their fight isn't hopeless. Keanu's visits weren't brief celebrity drop-ins. They were substantial encounters where he would spend entire afternoons with families, sharing detailed stories about Kim's treatment, recovery, and current life as a healthy adult. He would bring photos of Kim from her treatment days and recent pictures showing her thriving, providing visual proof that the bald, sick child could become a healthy, happy adult. I show them pictures of Kim during her worst days. No hair, so thin, connected to machines, Keanu explained. Then I show them Kim today, beautiful, strong, living a full life. For kids who can't imagine ever being healthy again, seeing those pictures can be everything. The emotional impact on the children had been remarkable. Many families reported that Keanu's visit had been a turning point in their child's attitude toward treatment. Seeing someone who had witnessed survival firsthand, who could describe in detail what recovery looked like, often helped children find courage they didn't know they possessed. There was this 10-year-old boy named Michael who had completely given up, Keanu remembered. He was refusing treatment, saying he just wanted to die and get it over with. I spent 4 hours with him, telling him every detail of Kim's recovery, how her hair grew back thicker than before, how she went back to school, how she eventually forgot that cancer had ever been part of her life. The impact on Keanu had been equally profound. Each visit reminded him of Kim's courage and their family's journey, but it also revealed new depths of human resilience that continued to inspire his own approach to life's challenges. These kids teach me about presence, about finding joy in small moments, about the difference between being alive and truly living, Keanu reflected. When you're with a child who might not see their next birthday, but they're excited about the art project they're making for their mom, you understand what really matters. Keanu kept private notes about each family he visited, not for any official purpose, but because he wanted to remember their stories and follow their progress. His records included updates on recoveries, remissions, and, sadly, the children who didn't survive their battles. I've been to funerals for kids I visited, Keanu said quietly. That's part of this work, too. Sometimes survival isn't possible, but hope and dignity always are. Being present for families during the worst moments of their lives is just as important as celebrating the victories. Tonight's appearance on The Tonight Show was supposed to focus on Keanu's latest action film, which featured themes of protection and sacrifice. Jimmy had planned to discuss the film's stunts, maybe explore Keanu's philosophical approach to his craft, definitely tap into the introspective wisdom that made him such a compelling guest. The interview had started with Keanu's characteristic thoughtfulness and humility. He had discussed his new film with the kind of genuine insight that had made him famous for being more than just an action star, sharing observations about heroism and responsibility that had the audience hanging on every word. But when Jimmy asked about what heroism meant to Keanu in real life, something shifted in his expression. The question had been meant as a philosophical exploration of his film's themes, but it had touched on something much more personal that Keanu had been considering sharing publicly for the first time. You know, Jimmy, Keanu said, his voice taking on an unusual weight, the real heroes I know aren't in movies. They're children fighting battles that would break most adults, and they do it with more courage than any character I've ever played. The audience grew quiet, sensing that Keanu was moving into territory that was more personal than his usual thoughtful responses. That sounds like you've met some of these heroes, Jimmy said, genuinely intrigued. Keanu was quiet for a long moment, his characteristic stillness taking on deeper meaning. My sister Kim, battled leukemia for almost 10 years. Watching her fight taught me what real courage looks like. Not movie courage, but the everyday bravery of facing something that might kill you and choosing hope anyway. The studio was completely focused on Keanu's words now, the energy shifting from entertainment to something much more profound and personal. "That must have been terrifying for your family," Jimmy said softly. Keanu's eyes filled with tears, a sight that was always powerful when it came from someone known for his emotional restraint. "It was the hardest thing we ever went through. But Kim survived, and that survival taught me something important about hope, that it's not just a feeling, it's a responsibility." The audience was completely silent now, witnessing a side of Keanu Reeves that transcended his celebrity, the raw humanity of someone whose personal pain had become a source of healing for others. "Jimmy, can I tell you about something I've been doing for the past 8 years?" Keanu asked, his voice growing stronger despite his tears. "Something that's become the most important work of my life?" "Of course," Jimmy replied, clearly understanding that something significant was being shared. Keanu took a deep breath and spoke directly to the camera. "I visit children's cancer wards, kids who are fighting the same battle my sister fought, 234 children over 8 years sharing Kim's story and proving that survival is possible." Jimmy's expression changed completely as he grasped what Keanu was describing. "Keanu, you're visiting children with cancer?" "I'm visiting families who are living through what my family survived," Keanu replied gently. "When you're facing your child's possible death, you need more than medical statistics. You need to meet someone who's watched survival happen, who can describe what recovery actually looks like." Tears were streaming down Jimmy's face. "Can you tell us about one of these children?" "Emma was 8 when I met her," Keanu said, his voice becoming tender. "She had just started chemotherapy and was convinced she was going to die because she'd lost all her hair. I showed her pictures of Kim during treatment, bald, thin, connected to machines, and then photos of Kim today, healthy and beautiful." Keanu paused, gathering himself to continue. "Emma's whole attitude changed when she saw those pictures. She realized that losing your hair didn't mean losing your life. Kim's recovery became Emma's proof that she could recover too." "What happened to Emma?" Jimmy asked through his tears. "Emma finished treatment 2 years ago," Keanu said, with obvious joy. "She's cancer-free, back in school, and her hair grew back even curlier than before. But most importantly, Emma volunteers now with newly diagnosed kids, showing them her own before and after pictures." The audience was openly emotional, many people crying as they witnessed this revelation about Keanu's private ministry to children facing life-threatening illness. "Keanu, how has this work changed you?" Jimmy asked. "It's taught me that survival stories are meant to be shared," Keanu replied with quiet conviction. "Kim didn't just survive for herself, she survived so that her story could give hope to other families facing the same terror. These hospital visits are how I honor both her courage and the courage of every child still fighting." As the segment concluded, something unprecedented happened. The entire studio audience rose in sustained applause that lasted over 5 minutes, but it wasn't just appreciation, it was recognition of something sacred, acknowledgement that they had witnessed love transformed into healing action. Keanu's revelation became one of the most shared Tonight Show segments in the program's history, inspiring conversations about childhood cancer, family survival, and the responsibility that comes with overcoming trauma to help others facing similar challenges. Most importantly, Keanu's disclosure had shown that sometimes the most heroic thing about surviving tragedy isn't the survival itself, it's using that survival to light the way for others still walking through darkness.